Okay, yeah, this is breaking news as of like an hour or two ago. Okay, so sort of more broken news, more broken news, but here we go. So it has just been confirmed. There's been rumors swirling about it for the last few days. Jason Schreier pointed out, he's like, I'm getting ready to make a story on that, but not ready yet. Well, the time has come. He posted a story on Bloomberg with some breaking news and a revelation that is spinning and swirling. PlayStation's pivoting. They're pivoting. Sony is officially, according to his reporting, pulling back from putting games on PC. He said they no longer plan to put out PC ports of PlayStation games such as Ghost of Yotei. They no longer plan to release its big PlayStation 5 games on PC, a major shift in strategy that sees the video game maker returning to console exclusivity after 6 years of flirting with multi-platform releases, according to people familiar with the company's plans. Online games such as Marathon and Marvel Tokon Battle will still be released across multiple platforms, but single-player titles such as last year's samurai hit Ghost of Yotei and the upcoming action game Saros will remain exclusive to PlayStation 5, said the people, who asked not to be identified. The people cautioned that things could change in the future due to the unpredictable nature of the video game industry, and that Sony's plans are constantly shifting. But in recent weeks, PlayStation scrapped plans to bring Ghost of Yotei and other internally developed games to PC. Two games made by external developers but published by PlayStation, Death Stranding 2 and its upcoming Kena Scars of Cosmora, are still planned for release on PC this year. PlayStation declined to comment. There are likely a few reasons behind the shift. One is that several recent PlayStation games have not sold well on PC. A faction within PlayStation has also expressed concern that releasing their games on PC risks damaging the console's brand and will hurt sales of the PS5 and its successors, according to people familiar with their inner workings. And this seems to be what the data, whatever data they have, whatever they're tracking, it seems to be suggesting to them that people are not playing games on PC and then deciding to go buy a PlayStation 5 to experience the newest one sooner. So like they're not playing Ghost of Tsushima on PC and then going, Ghost of Yotei's launching, I'm going to go buy a PS5 for that, which was kind of the idea. It was the thesis was that if you can introduce PC players to these games to show them how good they are, they will then come over and join your ecosystem to experience the newer one. That didn't really happen though, because it seems like most PC players were like, cool, I'll play it, and then I'll just wait for Yotei to come to PC, which is what's happened so far. Even now, I know somebody firsthand who's like, yeah, I love Death Stranding. Love it. Played it on PC. It's great. I'm just going to wait for Death Stranding 2 to come to PC. I'm not buying a PS5 for it. I'll just wait. And I think a lot of people behave the same way. Like, why would they go spend, at this point, $500 to $800 for, the console and or the game and controllers and all that? Why would they do all that if they can just wait? And a lot of people just ended up waiting. So the thesis of expanding the tent by introducing the games to a new audience, it didn't really hold true. And the big problem is that with them not selling well, or at least well enough to justify the investment to port those games over, it's like, okay, so we're not getting the benefit of people coming over to the platform and we're not making a bunch of profit on the port. What are the net negatives? And the net negative apparently is that they're worried, at least internally, that it is harming the console's brand, which I think I'm not sure exactly, that's such an amorphous term, but my concern and my perspective is that this generation, there's been there's not been any clear communication from Xbox or PlayStation on what the next 6 months or a year is going to bring. Even like Xbox has been the worst offender of this, where they're like, yeah, we're just going to bring 4 games to PlayStation. And then soon enough, it's everything. It's like, okay, so what is going on? Because I don't think they know. I think they're actively trying to figure out what their strategy is as they're going through the motions. And same with PlayStation, where they've been experimenting with PC launches. Some of them come day and date with like live service stuff. Others come later, and sometimes it's 6 months. It might be a year, might be more than that. They've been figuring out what they think. And the whole time they've been collecting data and tracking players. Like, you better believe that's why they wanted that PlayStation account when you bought Helldivers. They're trying to track all of this. They're trying to see if you played Helldivers, did you end up buying a PlayStation? Did you end up engaging with any other PlayStation games? Like, how does that work? And apparently the data they have is making them think it's a net negative to bring the games over, which is why they're pumping the brakes. For decades, Sony's tactic was for selling PlayStations was to keep tentpole franchises exclusive to its own consoles. In 2020, it pivoted and began bringing games to personal computers via Steam. Since then, the company has put most of its biggest franchises on PC, such as God of War and The Last of Us. But the strategy has been muddled and confused many players. Most PC releases arrived months or years after the games came to PlayStation. The cadence was never consistent, and the announcements appeared to be haphazard. The company also upset PC players by asking them to create a PlayStation Network account to access many of the games, though not all of them, but a lot of them. Now, Sony is looking to take a more straightforward approach, going back to console exclusives. And this is happening at the same time we're hearing rumblings of like Xbox shaking up their strategies, which is also really interesting. Sony's two rivals in the console space have taken different paths. Nintendo has released almost all of its games solely on its Switch hardware, while Microsoft has turned into a multi-platform publisher, releasing everything on PC and many games on PlayStation. Another factor behind Sony's pivot might be the next Xbox from Microsoft, which is rumored to use Windows and be capable of playing PC games. Some executives at PlayStation may not be thrilled at the prospect of one of the company's flagship games like God of War running on the next Xbox console, which I've heard so many people bring this up. And it was funny on stream. I remember reading this and being like, that is so petty. If they're really going to like cancel these plans because they don't like the idea of you being able to launch a game like God of War through Steam on an Xbox PC, that is so petty. And then somebody in chat was like, yeah, but it's Sony. They're pretty petty. And I was like, okay, yeah, actually that does kind of make sense. that does kind of make sense. Yeah, I think it, like, I would hope that maybe they could be more big picture than that, but maybe they do honestly care about that. Maybe they have data that suggests if people are able to play all of these games on an Xbox that's set up by their TV, the odds of them going out and buying a PlayStation drop a bit. You know, maybe that's what worries them. I don't know, but that does seem to be at least one potential factor in this whole thing. It does, to be clear, it does look like they are still going to be bringing live service games to PC. So, you know, you're not getting out a fair game $. You're going to get it. Okay. You're going to get fair games, and you're, I was going to say going to like it, but you're going to play. It's going to be there. Okay. And there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do about it. But the single player stuff, it seems like they're choosing to maybe pivot back to full on exclusivity. What I hope we just get out of all of the big companies for the next couple of years, I just want them to freaking be clear about what they're doing and freaking stick to it, dude. Like, it drives me up the wall that they will say one thing and then 6 months later it's a total 180 and we're doing something completely opposite. Like, people can't make informed purchasing decisions when it comes to hardware or anything else if things are constantly changing and shifting and moving. So if this is the new strategy, I hope they stick to it and move forward from there. I do think it's interesting it's coming at this time because we have a lot of big PlayStation games coming, like Wolverine. That's an expensive game, and apparently that also will not be coming to cross-platform. That will be PlayStation exclusive. Okay, that's interesting. They also have other big games like the rumored God of War spinoff that Corey has been working on. That allegedly could be coming at any point, announced this year, releasing early next year. There's also Intergalactic Heretic Prophet from Naughty Dog. Like, if this is their plan to go full exclusivity through the end of the generation, locking it in now kind of makes sense because they've got a lot of things happening. Luke Mad, dude, I have 4 PS5s in this house. I'm extra. I do not care. I will play it wherever. I think it's better for the broader gaming public if they can play the games where they want to play them. If you play it on PC, the version of the game you're going to get, in theory, is going to be better than the version you're going to get on console. You're going to play it at higher res, higher fidelity, higher frame rates. It's going to be better. You can even play it on the go with like a Legion Go or a Steam Deck or whatever. So like, there's a lot of benefits to playing on PC. I prefer to play these games on PC, but I also understand if they're looking at it and they're like, it's a net negative, you know? Because for me, if I have to play everything. For me, as a very engaged fan of these types of games, if something launches like Ghost of Yote, I can't wait a year to play it. So I'm going to play it on console where it launches. So waiting a year or two to launch it on PC, that just means I'm not going to double dip. I'm not going to buy it because I already played it. And I think that's what they've seen, is they were hoping a lot more people would double dip and would buy the game a second time on PC. And I just don't think that's really happened. So they've realized if they're going to do it, they probably need to launch day and date. But if you launch day and date, I think what they've discovered is that a lot more people will leave PlayStation moving to PC than will leave PC moving to PlayStation. And that's a big no-no, because most of PlayStation's money comes from the fact that they take 30% of everything that happens on their store. And I know anecdotally, I have friends that used to be big players on PlayStation that moved to PC. I don't know anybody who has ever sold their PC to go buy a PlayStation instead. I'm sure there's people out there that did that, but I've never heard of that. Nobody in my circle's ever done that. The dynamic does, you're absolutely right, Zappy. It does change the fact that consoles and PCs have gotten so much more expensive. That does change the dynamic, but I think the key is that it's changing for everybody. Everything's getting more expensive. PCs in particular are getting really, really expensive. The components are. But yeah, it's just a fascinating time. But it looks like they're actually pivoting away officially, and they're gonna stick single player stuff staying on the console. It's gonna stick to the console. That seems to be the new strategy. So pumping the brakes on cross-platform stuff when it comes to single player, which is crazy. It's crazy, but I've had the sneaking suspicion, and then I'll get Jor on. I've had the sneaking suspicion for a while that PlayStation really wanted to do their own launcher. There was like data mine stuff suggesting they might be working on that. And you guys know, if you've ever played on PC, you know, trying to do your own launcher would be a terrible idea. Okay. Everybody tried it. Bethesda, Ubisoft, EA, you name it. Everybody tried it. And it always goes bad because PC gamers love their Steam. They just love it. Okay. So if they tried to launch a PlayStation launcher where it was the only place you could get these games, I think the unit sold would be way lower.